Welcome to our deep dive on blue ocean strategy. We're going to be talking about how companies can create these uncontested market spaces and make the competition irrelevant, just like W. Chan Kim and Renée Mauborgne describe in their book, Blue Ocean Strategy. And it's not about battling it out in crowded markets, those red oceans, but about creating entirely new blue oceans where the demand is really high and there's practically no competition.
Yeah, it's a whole shift in mindset. Most companies get so caught up, in trying to beat their rivals in these existing markets that they completely miss out on these huge opportunities out there in uncharted territory.
So it's not even about getting a bigger slice of the pie, it's more like baking a whole new pie.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. Think about it when you're fighting for a share of an existing market. You constantly have to lower prices, add more features, spend more money on marketing than your competitors. It just becomes a race to the bottom and everybody loses.
But with Blue Ocean Strategy, you're creating something totally new. You're not offering a slightly better product or service. It's a whole new experience that changes the boundaries of the market.
Exactly. And the best part is when you create a blue ocean, you don't have to worry about competition because you're the only one playing in that space.
That sounds amazing in theory, but how does it actually work? Can you give me an example?
Sure. One classic example is Cirque du Soleil. They didn't try to create just a better circus. Instead, they combined the thrill and spectacle of the circus with the artistry and sophistication of theater.
So they created something new that appealed to a whole new audience.
Exactly. They got rid of expensive things like animal acts and star performers and focused on creating a visually stunning and emotionally engaging experience. By breaking away from what everyone else was doing in the circus industry, they created a blue ocean of their own.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about being different. It's about being different in a way that creates a ton of value for both the buyer and the company.
That's the core of what they call value innovation, making the competition irrelevant by offering something so unique and compelling that it creates its own demand.
Okay, so how do companies actually find these blue oceans? Is it just brainstorming, or is there a better way?
There are actually several proven paths companies can take. One is to look across alternative industries. Instead of focusing on direct competitors, think about what other industries offer similar benefits or address similar needs.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure, think about NetJets, the company that started fractional jet ownership. They didn't just look at other airlines, they looked at the bigger market for corporate travel and saw a need. They saw this gap between the high cost of private jets and the inconvenience of commercial airlines. By offering this kind of hybrid solution, they created a blue ocean in the private aviation industry.
So they found a way to appeal to customers who weren't being served by the existing options. That's really smart. What are some other paths companies can take?
Another path is to look across strategic groups within an industry. Instead of going head to head with the big players, try targeting a niche that's not really being served well.
Like curves, right? Those fitness clubs that focused on women who didn't feel comfortable in traditional gyms.
Exactly. They created a simple workout experience that was affordable, accessible, and designed for women. By appealing to that specific segment of the market, they carved out their own blue ocean in the fitness industry.
So far, we've talked about looking across alternative industries and strategic groups. What else can companies do to find these blue oceans?
Another great path is to look across the chain of buyers. Often companies just focus on the person buying the product, but there could be other people influencing that decision.
Can you explain that a little more?
Sure, think about a company that sells children's tours. They might focus on marketing to parents, but what about the kids themselves? By understanding the needs and desire of the kids, the end users, the company could develop products that are more appealing and connect better with their target market.
That makes sense. It's about understanding everyone involved in the buying decision and how they influence each other.
Exactly. There are actually three more paths we could talk about, but I think we should save those for part two of this deep dive so you have some time to think about all of this.
That sounds good to me. But before we move on, I have to ask, what about companies that are already in a crowded market? Can they create a blue ocean, or are they stuck?
That's a great question, and we'll definitely talk about that in the next part. But for now, I want you to think about the industries. What are the assumptions that everyone seems to accept? Could you challenge those assumptions? Remember, blue oceans are often right in front of us, just waiting to be found.
All right, we're back, and I've been thinking about blue oceans and all these untapped markets. I'm ready to hear about those other paths you mentioned.
Well, the fourth path is looking at complementary products and services. Think about what happens before, during, or after your customer uses your product or service. Are there any pain points there?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like if you sell a fancy coffee maker, maybe you could offer a subscription for good coffee beans or connect customers with baristas for lessons.
Exactly. By thinking about that whole customer journey and addressing those needs, you can create something more valuable that makes you stand out from the competition.
That's a great example. What's the next path?
The fifth path is looking across functional emotional appeal in an industry. Sometimes industries focus a lot on functionality while others really play up the emotions. By challenging these conventions, you can often find new market space.
Hmm. I'm not sure I get that. Can you give me an example?
Think about Swatch. Back in the 80s, the watch industry was all about functionality being precise. Swatch came in and added color personality and fun to their watches. They made a boring thing into a fashion statement.
So they tapped into that emotional desire for self-expression and created a whole new market for stylish, affordable watches.
Exactly. And the final path is looking across time and figuring out how trends will affect your industry. Instead of reacting to change, you can shape it by identifying those new needs and desires.
So it's about knowing what's coming next and getting ready to take advantage of it.
Yes, take Apple. They didn't invent digital music, but they saw it was the future and created the iPod and iTunes.
That's a great example of how understanding trends can lead to huge innovations.
It is, but finding a blue ocean is just the first part. You have to be able to turn that vision into a plan. That's where the 4 steps of visualizing strategy come in.
Okay, let's talk about that. What's the first step?
The first step is visual awakening. It's about shaking things up and showing your team how things really are. You can create a strategy canvas, which is this visual tool that shows everyone where you are in the market and how you're competing.
So it's about getting everyone to agree that change is needed.
Exactly. Once you've done that, you move on to visual exploration. That's when you go out and see how customers are really using your product or service.
You mean getting out of the office and into the real world?
Exactly. And don't just talk to your current customers, talk to people who aren't buying from you.
Why is it important to talk to people who aren't customers?
Because they can tell you why they're not buying from you. They can show you what's wrong with the industry and help you find those unmet needs.
That's something you wouldn't hear from your loyal customers.
Exactly. After gathering all this information, you move on to visual strategy fair. This is where you bring all the creative ideas together.
Okay, a strategy fair sounds interesting.
It is. You split your team into groups, and each group comes up with a new visual strategy, a new value curve that could lead to a blue ocean. The important thing here is to use visuals to draw pictures instead of writing long reports.
I love that idea. It makes the strategy easier to understand and more fun for everyone.
Right. And after everyone presents their visual strategies, you have a fair where everyone votes on the best ideas.
So it's a democratic process where the best ideas win. I really like that.
And the last step is visual communication. That's where you take the winning strategy and explain it clearly to everyone in the company.
So it's about making sure everyone understands the plan and their role in making it happen.
Exactly. You want to create a simple one-page visual that shows the old strategy and the new strategy side by side, showing what to eliminate, reduce rate, and create.
This visual becomes the roadmap for the whole company.
Exactly. Visualizing strategy is a great way to make it easier to understand, unlock creativity, and make sure everyone is on the same page.
This is all great, but even with a great strategy, you still need people to make it happen. How do you get everyone on board and make sure things go smoothly?
That brings us to fair process, and that's what we'll talk about in part 3 of this deep dive. Fair process is about building trust and buy-in, making sure everyone feels heard and respected during the process.
Okay, I'm already interested. Fair process sounds like the key to getting people excited and turning a vision into reality. I can't wait to hear more about that in the next session. Okay, we're back, and I'm really excited to dive into this fair process you mentioned. It sounds like it's crucial for making these blue ocean strategies actually work.
Yeah, it's absolutely essential. You could have the most amazing strategy in the world, but without your people on board, it won't go anywhere.
So it's not just about having a good idea, but making sure everyone believes in it and wants to be part of it.
Exactly. Fair process is about building trust and commitment within the organization, making people feel valued and respected every step of the way.
Okay, I'm getting that, but how does fair process actually work?
Well, there are 3 main principles: engagement, explanation, and expectation clarity.
Let's break those down. What do you mean by engagement?
Engagement means getting people involved in the decisions that affect them. Don't just tell people what to do, give them a voice and let them share their ideas.
So you're giving employees more power and making them feel like they're truly part of the process.
Exactly. When people feel invested in the outcome, they're more likely to be excited and committed to making it succeed.
That makes sense. What about explanation? Why is that important?
Explanation is all about transparency and communication, clearly explaining the reasons behind decisions so people understand why things are happening.
So it's not just about telling people what to do, but helping them understand the bigger picture?
Exactly. When people understand why a decision was made, they're more likely to support it, even if it wasn't their first choice.
I can see how that would build trust. What about expectation clarity?
Expectation clarity is about setting clear goals, roles, and responsibilities. Everyone should know what's expected of them and how their work contributes to the overall success.
So there's no confusion, and everyone is working together towards the same goal.
Exactly. When you have all three engagement, explanation, and expectation clarity, you create a culture of trust, transparency, and accountability, which is essential for any new strategy, especially something as bold as a blue ocean strategy.
This is all making sense now. Do you have any examples of how fair process has been used successfully?
Of course, let's look at the New York City Police Department in the 1990s. Crime was really high, and the subways were considered dangerous and out of control. When William Bratton became police commissioner, he knew he needed to make a big change.
I'm guessing he didn't just hire more police officers.
You're right, Bratton knew he had to change the culture of the NYPD, and he did that by implementing fair process at every level.
What did that look like?
Well, he started by making his top people get out of their offices and ride the subways. He wanted them to see the problems firsthand, talk to the officers on the ground, and listen to the people who rode the subways every day.
So he was making sure everyone understood the reality of the situation.
Exactly, and he didn't stop there. He started these CompStat meetings where officers from different areas would share data, discuss crime trends, and brainstorm solutions together.
So he was creating a culture of collaboration and accountability?
Exactly. By combining these fair process principles with a clear strategy and good execution, Bratton was able to transform the NYPD and significantly reduce crime.
That's an amazing example of what fair process can achieve. It's not just about putting a strategy in place, but leading people through change.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment where people feel heard, respected, and empowered to do their best work.
This deep dive into blue ocean strategy has been incredible. We've talked about everything from finding opportunities and making a plan to the importance of fair process.
And I want to emphasize that blue ocean strategy isn't just for big companies. It's something anyone can use. So challenge the way things have done in your industry. Look for those unmet needs. You never know, the next blue ocean might be right around the corner.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all this. It's given me a whole new perspective on strategy and innovation.
It was my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into blue ocean strategy. Go make some waves.